Welcome back, members. We'll now go into our second session, and we'll start with land adjacent to 11 St John's Street, Hythe. This is application number 20/11229 on pages 47 on your agenda. Do I have any interest on this one, please? Sue Benison?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I need to declare a personal interest. I know the applicant, so I will not take part in the debate and I will not vote. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And Beverly Thorne, Councillor Thorne?
Yes, I've declared an interest.
Okay.
No, I just confirm you won't be participating in the debate or voting?
No.
Councillor Thierry?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Declaring a personal interest, and as such, I will not take part in the debate, neither will I vote, and will excuse myself as if I was in the council chamber.
Thank you. Councillor Holding?
Yes, I do know the applicant, but I haven't discussed this with him in any way or seen him for some time. I think most people knew him anyway as a district councillor, and so I am going to take part.
Thank you. That's 4 people, Karen, that won't be taking part. We're still quorum, I would imagine.
Only 3, because Councillor Holding will be participating in voting.
Fine. Thank you. In that case, then we'll go over to Julie Parry. If you can do the presentation, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon. I'll just share the screen. Hopefully you can see that. I have got an update. The agent has circulated a response to the officer's report and a plan showing the original landscaping for the site. A further plan was submitted to change the red line, which we could not accept at this late stage. So the application site is land adjacent to 11 St John's Street in Hythe. The application relates to a strip of landscaping, which is positioned alongside number 11 St John's Street. The land in question is a designated landscaping feature in the local plan, and the saved landscaping policy is therefore relevant. The road alongside is called the Promenade and leads down to the waterfront. Number 11 is a Grade 2 listed building, and the area is located within Hythe Conservation Area, and is sited opposite Waitrose car park. Here you can see the aerial view and the piece of land in question, which is the green area of bushes and trees, and you can see the promenade going down to the waterfront and the car park opposite. The application seeks planning permission for a parking space, outlined in red, to be created within the landscaping strip, and for a pedestrian gate to be formed in the existing boundary wall to provide access from this parking space to the rear garden. The applicant does not own the piece of land where the parking space would be formed, but has served the required notice on the landowners, who will also own the land opposite. The application is being brought to you today at the request of Councillor Beverly Thorne, who supports the application. The main considerations are the impact on this landscaping feature, which contribute to the character and setting of this historic area, creating a buffer between the car park and the row of listed buildings alongside the highway. There is also concerns raised from highway officers. This plan indicates the turning area for reversing onto the site on this corner, and you could just probably see the visibility displays that would be required. The introduction of a pedestrian gate within the boundary wall is considered acceptable, given that the wall is a relatively modern construction. The pillars and gate proposed would not impact on the character of the listed building, and the surface of the parking area will be constructed with a porous material using a cellular system. This is a photograph of the street scene. your officers considered that the proposed development would be unsympathetic to this verdant buffer and result in material loss of vegetation detrimental to the street scene and conservation area, and that's therefore it's considered non-acceptable and recommended for refusal. We also have concerns raised by the highways officer, has raised objection to the manoeuvring in the road alongside a sharp bend, which would be dangerous to road users. And he's also raised concern about the visibility space which are proposed, which will be outside of the control of the applicant as he does not own the land. And therefore there's no guarantee that these visibility spaces can be retained. This is the adjacent property, the Boathouse, which does have an access, which is up on the corner. This was created in 1985, the access to this building. This is the position where the new access would be created and the parking area. And another photograph of that. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, we only have one speaker, Mr. Chris Harrison. If you'd like to go ahead and give us your 3-minute presentation. You are muted at the moment. You are muted.
There we are. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yeah. Thank you. Go ahead.
I'll tell you what I could see. I got the presentation actually, the visual of the presentation, but that's all I got. So I don't know what that's all about. Actually, I don't know. Can you still hear me? Okay. Hello. Oh, flipping heck.
Sorry,
hello.
Yes, we can see you and we can hear you.
Thank you. Well, before we start the clock, Madam Chairman, can I say I hope you all received a copy of my agent's report in your email and had a moment to read it. Was that okay? Because this application is not just about a parking space, it's about a parking space with necessary wheelchair access. Right, are you going to start the clock now?
Go ahead, please, Mr. Harrison.
Okay. If I go through the officer's report, section 2 refers to me parking on an area outside my back gate, which has not been formed recently, as I've used it since I moved here in 2015, with the landowner's consent, until I was asked to refrain by the planning enforcement officer, which I did, even though before I bought this house from NFDC, your tenants used to park here. Anyway, I have a letter from the planning enforcement department about this land, and it tells me that this land is designated open space and recreation, which is different to the officer's description, which describes this area as a verdant buffer and a landscape feature. I've spoken at length with the original NFDC officer who planned the original vegetation for this strip, and I was told it was ornamental shrub planting beds among the trees. It was in no way meant to be hedging, and this mass of overgrown, unkempt vegetation is due to a lack of maintenance. So the loss of a few meters of hedging at the bottom of the garden would in fact be no loss from the original concept. Even your own ecologist in their report agrees with it being okay to remove this limited amount of hedging. In paragraph 6, I know that the planning committee sometimes takes a lot of notice of the views of the local parish or town council. And in this case, they recommended refusal on the basis of not sure who owns the land, even though it does show it on the application form. I pointed out to them that the ownership of land is not a planning consideration. And so they have sent in a correction to this submission. It's shown in the online documents, but not in this report. In section 8, the highways, well, you know, I'm sorry, but this is armchair planning because he's obviously not visited the site. He has 2 whole paragraphs referring to walking in the road and a crossing required. He has not understood the title, which clearly refers to an access gate at the bottom of the garden. And then, of course, any visibility displays can be fixed with conditions. In section 3, there's representations. All 4 supporters are from local and not one from Southampton, you can see from the postcode. The 5 in opposition, 4 are referring to the wrong parking place and not looked at the application and just the green notice. The fact is, no one has given a jot about this land. When the footpath disappeared, did people write to the council or the Echo or the Lymington Times? No. The only person who really cares about this piece of land is me. I clear the litter. I got rid of the drinking dens. I stopped the drug dealers and the people using it as a toilet. This bottom area is just a piece of scrub land with 2 trees that will be protected. It is right next door to the boathouse, and you've allowed parking there, and the boathouse, along with all the other houses along the promenade, all reverse out. Here, this allows for reversing in and driving out. Conditions can be added. Thank you. Finished.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harrison. Members, do you have questions for the case officer or Mr. Harrison? Doesn't seem to be any hands coming up at the moment.
Okay.
Councillor Holding. Councillor Holding, did you have your hand up?
I did, yes, and I pressed it about 3 times, but I'm sorry it didn't come on, Christine.
Okay, if you'd like to put your question to...
Yes, well, I don't know whether it's to an officer or whether it's to Mr. Harrison, but what worried me about this, I mean, I do know that area quite well, and I have seen quite a lot of things parked in the boathouse and along there. And why does this particular one become a problem when it's not been a problem for years? And in fact, he has kept and maintained it. And there haven't been any problems, as I gather, from neighbours about it. And to me, it seems very strange that this has suddenly arisen, because it's a local council that's brought it up, and presumably somebody's complained to her. But I'm just interested that no one else has been complained about, and this particular space has, because as far as I can see, it's a great asset that Mr. Harrison has been looking after it and keeping it in good condition.
Okay, I will come to the case officer on that, but Chris Harrison also has his hand up, so you can go first then, Chris Harrison.
Thank you very much. No, we did a freedom of information request from the police, and they've never had any accidents of note along there at all. It is really a service road. That's all it is, and it's never been a problem. This is right next door to an existing parking space. It's not 10 yards or 50 yards up the road. That's right. It is right next door.
Thank you. Can we go now then to Julie Parry?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. We have looked at the other. I guess you're talking about the existing parking space that people haven't complained about. Obviously, that has gone through to our enforcement team, and enforcement case has been raised, and obviously Mr. Harrison has discussed that. This doesn't form part of this application, and is still in existence as it's in its current form. What we're proposing is to obviously create a further parking space further down the road, which would be 4 metres wide by 8.4. Plus the visibility displays, which are outside of the control. But you know, this is a landscaping feature which has been saved within the local plan.
I'm sorry, it's a mess, and the only person
please, Councillor Holding, please don't interrupt.
Sorry, it is a mess.
Julie, wish to continue.
Thank you. It does create a verdant buffer between the hard landscaping opposite of the Waitrose car park and the listed buildings. There's a lovely row of listed buildings alongside, as Mr. Harrison will know, and the policies do require for these landscaping features to be retained and not lost if they contribute to the setting and character of the location, which I believe they do in this conservation area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hilary Brand. You're muted.
Sorry, yes. I just wanted to ask, the highways mention it would be unsafe to reverse or come out into that road, but on one of the pictures that was shown, it looks like you could come out without going onto the road. Could I ask the officer to explain what is the case? Would you reverse straight out onto the road, or is there a space to manoeuvre?
Thank you, Councillor. I can share the photograph again. Just bear with me. So you see there is the plan does show how to manoeuvre so that you would reverse. I mean, ideally you can't turn on the site, so ideally you would need to reverse in and then come out of the site in a forward gear. So you would need to manoeuvre on the road. So you need to pull in, reverse into the site, and then you could come out in a forward gear at a later date. But the highways officer, obviously with a bend, there's yellow lines all around this road. He considered it unsafe to be manoeuvring, and you couldn't guarantee that people are going to reverse in, and eventually people could reverse out of this car parking space, which would be unsafe.
Thank you.
Muted again. Sorry, there's no more hands up for questions, so we'll go into debate. Members, we're now in debate. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. As I say, we over the last few years have been very keen on keeping the green spaces that we have, because with more development, green space, and the fact that you can look at green space and enjoy green space, even though it is scrubby and rough and whatever. But my main concern here is that we need to pay attention, I feel, to the report for the roads. Where is it here? And it do seem very firm. Highways do seem very. I do have a number of objections, and we normally have to pay attention to the objections when they are raised. So I am not minded at this moment to find a good reason to actually allow this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Glass.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I know this area well because I go down there very often because it's a good place to shop. This corner is quite a dodgy corner. People are going down, you've got trucks going down to unload because it's the back entrance to the shops. It's quite busy and therefore I believe should be kept clear, and I think the traffic officer has got it right. I appreciate all the good reasons for having another car parking spot there, but I think it would be a danger, and therefore I would propose going with the officers and refusing. Thank you.
You're muted, Christine. If you're looking for a seconder, I was going to do a second.
Okay.
If that's what
yes,
you were
I was looking for a seconder. Thank you. This muting is becoming quite a game. Okay. I've got Councillor Holding on there.
Yes, I really, having looked at it carefully, I do feel that it doesn't do very much material harm at all. And if it's just left and not kept, as Mr. Harrison has been keeping it, I can see that it's going to be full of litter and goodness knows what, along with everything else along that hedge, because it tends to look after quite a little area. And I think, quite honestly, that compensates for any green that's taken away. And I'm sorry, I didn't intend to butt in before, it just came out. But, you know, it would be a mess if he didn't look after it. And so I am going to vote for him to keep it, because I do think it stays in better order that way. And we all occasionally have to back in and out of roads, and people there, the drivers, etc., the lorry drivers, usually take pretty good care, I think, of where they're going, as he will. So I don't think it's any more danger than anywhere else. And I've known a lot more dangerous places than that. So looking at it and balancing it out, I am going to vote for the retained use of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have no more hands up, so we will go to the vote after David Harrison. You have 1 more minute to respond.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Actually, it's Chris Harrison, not David Harrison.
Sorry, so sorry.
Never mind. Are you ready?
We are.
3 points. 1, this is right next door to the boathouse that has permission, and they all reverse out there. All the houses along that road reverse out. This allows you to reverse in and drive it. That's why it's a bit wider. And number 2, tell me which is safer from a wheelchair point of view. Loading and driving out from this new parking place from my back gate, where you can see all along both ways, or exiting from my front gate, which goes straight out onto the road with a wheelchair, where I can see only 4 yards to my right because of the tight bend with the high vegetation and all the traffic coming from Waitrose from their car park. So think about which is safer. Planning conditions to be added to make sure of visual displays. And the objections were all from one person who has a political, her friends, and a political grudge against me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members will now go to the vote, and the recommendation is to refuse, and that has been proposed by Councillor. Sorry, Councillor. Who proposed that one?
Councillor Glass.
It was Councillor Glass, yeah, and seconded by Councillor Sevier. There's a dog barking somewhere. I don't know whose it is. Okay, so we're voting then to go with the recommendation, which is to refuse. Councillor Anne Bellows.
Against.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
Abstain.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
Against.
Councillor Anne Corbridge. For. Councillor Kate Grisell isn't here. Councillor Barry Dunning.
I'll have to abstain, unfortunately, because I lost visual and audio with the presentation by the case officer.
Okay. Councillor Glass.
For.
Councillor Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Holding.
For.
Councillor Hopkins.
For.
She's done the wrong one.
Councillor Tony Ring.
For.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
For.
Councillor Michael Cherry, who's not voting. Councillor Beverly Thorne, are you voting?
I have to abstain.
Thank you. And Malcolm Wade's not here, and I will go for. So if you can confirm that for me, Democratic Services, that we have voted to refuse this application.
Oh, I was voting for the wrong thing.
I can confirm that carries the motion to refuse.
Oh.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry that's been refused. Thank you.
I'm sorry I voted for the wrong thing.
I will adjourn while our guest leaves the meeting. Members, we'll continue now. Page 55 of your agenda. Maylands 9 Lime Close, Dibden Purlieu. Application number 20/11463. Did we have any? I don't think we had any declarations of interest on this one, did we?
I don't think we do because Malcolm Wade's not present.
No. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll go to the case officer, please, Julie Parry, if you can give your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chairman. Hopefully you can see that. 9 Lime Close in Dibden Purlieu. So Lime Close is a cul-de-sac of 9 detached bungalows leading from Lime Walk. These properties are relatively low level with hipped roof designs which give a spacious character to the street scene. So, aerial view. There are some properties which have been altered with roof alterations which retain the low eaves and hipped roof character. This is a block plan showing the extension across the site and the relationship with the neighbouring properties in the cul-de-sac. The front of the property is a modest detached bungalow with dormers to accommodate some living accommodation at first floor. The existing property, as you see, is quite low level and modest in its height. It has got rooms in the roof served by the dormers. This is a previous application which was approved in 2018 for alterations and extensions, but has not been implemented. This previous scheme retained the low eaves and the hipped roof design, and it was considered at the time that this was probably the limit of what could be achieved on the site. This is the proposal. Feedback here. You can hear that okay. This is the proposal, which is to extend to the side with a 2-storey extension, raising the eaves and the roof alterations which would be included going across the site, increasing the height of the eaves and ridge. The resulting first floor would incorporate 4 bedrooms, and the ground floor would be extended, as you can see on the floor plan, to the rear and to the front. This application is brought to committee as there is a contrary view from the parish council. Your officer considers that because of the increase in height of the eaves and additional bulk across the site, the resulting dwelling would be out of scale and character with the pattern of development and would create a dominant dwelling within the streetscape, and is therefore recommended for refusal. As you can see, here is the floor plan of the existing floor plan and the proposed. This is a photograph of the front of the property, which you can see it's quite low level with dormers, and in relation to the neighbouring property. There are other properties which have been altered in the street. Opposite the site, there's some that have roof alterations, but they include low eaves and pitching away from the road. And even the one at the end, even though it's a slightly larger development, it still has the hipped roof form. This is the relationship between the neighbouring properties, which the built form would go across towards this neighbour. This is the rear of the property, showing the dormer, and the relationship with the neighbouring property, who has a dormer facing the application site. And this is the property to the rear. There is a gap of between a back-to-back relationship of 27 metres. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one speaker, the applicant, Mr. Darren Callaghan. You have 3 minutes to state your case. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be able to speak with you and represent this application on to create our forever home for my wife and my 2 young children. I just wanted to outline a key consideration was to achieve a design in keeping with the street scene, the local amenity, but above all else to improve beyond the 1950s dwelling and also beyond the approved plans submitted. We've worked with thoughtful and deliberate intention to remove aspects of the approved designs that were submitted by the previous owner, that neighbours actually opposed. It's pleasing to say that we've eliminated these to where we've received no objections from our neighbours. There is a high degree of diversity of architecture within the local area in Lime Walk and also in Lime Close, with 2 houses in Lime Close having benefited from more than just alterations. In fact, one was fully demolished and rebuilt with a hugely different design. Within the officer's report, a note is made specifically regarding number 5 Lime Close. It's actually number 4, it's diagonally opposite. The property does command a very dominant position, being opposite the street entrance, and a very unique design with significant roof mass, full height roof ridge, and a gable end to the facing the neighbour, forming a 2-storey dwelling. I would just note that the photograph in the officer's report doesn't fully represent the magnitude of that building when you see it up front. In comparison to such dwellings in the close, and the submitted plans, I would propose remain sympathetic and of modest scale and appearance to the street scene. Some of these features that we've included is benefiting from a hipped roof to the front, the sides and the rear, so pitched away from the neighbours and the road. The plans maintain a generous gap to the east and west boundaries, maintaining the spatial characteristics of the street, and also achieving greater separation than actually some on the close. The front does have a pitched porch which sets back the first floor dormer and the frontage from the ground floor, which is in keeping with the street scene and the characteristics. All of the reaches as well in the design are below a level established by planning for the close. In fact, they're actually lower than the approved plans, with a negligible difference in roof massing. The proposal is therefore it's a dwelling of a height which is consistent with the buildings already in the close, for example, number 4. We've also set back the garage and the entrance, which is something that our neighbour had opposed previously. We've set this back so we can remove the hard standing and introduce greenery at the front to form a front garden. And this also impacts the overlooking or any detrimental impact to our neighbour number 8. I would also add that there's a garage just next door which has submitted approval for a front gable form in the close. So in summary, we've worked very hard with the designers to create a proposal that on balance positively improves the street scene and amenity. And this was certainly a view shared by the local parish council as they welcome the plans with no negative impacts to the street scene. So I'd like to say thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have questions for the case officer or the applicant? Okay, there are no hands coming up, so we'll move into debate. Members, we are now in debate. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. It looks like I'm going to have to start this one as well. Again, we have got where obviously we never get easy ones when they come to us, because I can understand why the officers are concerned about the massing and the bulk of any development on top of what was originally a 1950s bungalow. But on the opposite side, of course, we have that there are no objections from the neighbours, and the parish and the parish council had also had no objections. So it's a very difficult one. It's down the end of a cul-de-sac. It's not, as I say. So that is where I feel when it comes to policy. Is it against policy? Is it whatever? But I suppose it's it just is. Is it too big? Anyway, I may have started the discussion, Madam Chairman, for you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that wishes to come in on the debate? Councillor Sue Benson.
Thank you, Chairman. I think my concerns with this one are comparing the previously approved scheme with the one that's proposed, is that the proposal will change what is a bungalow, a dormer bungalow at that, into something that has the appearance of a 2-storey building. 2 gables on the front, a roof light in the middle, sorry, they're on the back. Sorry, on the front, one large gable, one small gable. And the fact, my concern, and the fact that looking at the block plan, this building will literally stretch from one side to the other with very little gap. Now I know the others are, you know, fairly big on their plots, but they do have a little bit of space around them. So unless I hear anything really to the contrary, I believe our officers are correct in their recommendation that this application should be refused. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Maureen Holding.
Yes, I'm wondering whether the precedent has already been set down there, because it seems that there is a large dormer facing onto the house. And if a precedent has been set, of course, if it comes before an inspector, I don't think we would stand a lot of chance with it, because there are lots of bungalows that have that sort of design in the area. That's what I've got to say.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Ring.
Thank you, Chair. I find myself looking at it, agreeing with both the officer and Sue Bennison's comments that the previous application looked as though it was just about going to fit in with the area, and this has just gone that step beyond, which I think is a little bit sad, and therefore, yes, I'm going to go with the officer and vote to refuse.
Thank you. There's no more hands raised for the debate. So I will go back to our applicant, Mr. Callaghan. You have 1 minute to state your case.
Yes, I mean, what I would point out is that there has been a precedent set already with a significant development in the street. Also, Lime Close, which is, this is a cul-de-sac off Lime Close. Many buildings have already actually formed full two-level houses. This is not a two-level house. This is actually below the levels set by the planning. So in relation to the current approved application, which already has, more of a fuller width development that's already been approved. So when I look at the overlay of this versus the approved plans, the changes are more beneficial, that we're moving the house further back away from the road, which was seen as a very positive move by the local parish and our neighbours. In fact, the only real difference is to the left-hand part, which is the roof height, and we've raised that so it's actually, you can get better just use of the building. So we feel that versus the approved, there's actually a minimal increase in the development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, the recommendation is to refuse. I need a proposer and a seconder.
Okay, Chairman, I'll propose.
And seconder?
I'll second if I may, Chair. Tony.
Is that Ring, Councillor Ring?
Yeah, yes.
So that's proposed to refuse, yes?
Yeah.
Correct, yes.
Yeah. Okay. You understand it this time, do you? We're going with the recommendation, and the recommendation is to refuse. So I will now ask you to vote for, against, or abstain. Councillor Bellows.
For.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
For.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
For.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
For.
Councillor Barry Dunning. Councillor Dunning. You are muted.
It's frozen.
Frozen. I'll come back to you. Councillor Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Holding.
Against.
Councillor Hopkins.
For.
Councillor Ring.
For.
Councillor Sevier.
For.
Councillor Thierry.
For.
Councillor Thorne.
For.
I'll come back again to Councillor Dunning.
Yeah, sorry, Chairman, I'm having problems with my machinery. I'm voting for. I have seen the whole presentation. It's just the voting bit I've missed out on again.
Okay, thank you very much.
Would you
I
like
didn't
me
have Councillor Glass.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I'm voting for.
Thank you very much.
And your vote, Christine?
And mine's for as well. So we just had one against. Can you confirm that vote for me, please, Karen?
Hello, I've had 13 votes for and 1 vote against, so that carries the motion to refuse.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll just have an adjournment while Mr. Callaghan leaves the meeting. Members, we'll now go on to our last application, which is on page 61 of the agenda, 24 Broken Ford Lane, Totton. The application number is 21/10107. If you'd like to read out the statement, please, Mr. Kinghorn.
If we can do interest first and then the officer
Oh, do we have
presentation.
interest on this one?
I don't think we do, but
No.
just double check.
And then, Chairman, did you want to go to the presentation first?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Presentation, please.
Thank you,
Again,
Chairman.
it's Julie Parry.
It's me again, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, this is for 24 Brokenford Lane, Totton. We have got an update. It has been identified that within the application officer's report, number 15 was identified as Brokenford Lane, where it should have been Brokenford Avenue. This was an error in the address, but not in the consideration of the neighbour impact. So 24 Brokenford Lane. This application relates to a semi-detached property within the built-up area of Totton. There are similar properties alongside, with bungalows further along the road, and it leads down to the new development in Brokenford. This is the aerial view. You can see the property adjoining the neighbour. The property has been previously extended at ground floor to the rear and also at first floor with a flat roof, first floor extension. Which is clearer to see on here. We've got the flat roof rear extension and a single story rear extension going out to the back, which kicks out to the side. The application seeks permission for roof alterations to include a hip to gable addition to the side roof slope, along with dormers to the rear, which would be varying in depth. It should be noted that this part of the application would comply with the criteria for roof alterations under permitted development. This application also includes a single story extension to the side, which will be set back from the front elevation and have a flat roof design. The application is recommended for approval and is being brought to committee as the applicant is a member of New Forest District Council staff. This is the front of the property, as you can see with the adjoining neighbour. There's the pair of properties in the street scene. This is the relationship with the neighbouring property at number 26, and there is quite a gap between the properties. This is the rear of the property showing the flat roof where the dormers would be located. This is the relationship with the neighbouring property showing their garage alongside the boundary, and the view from the neighbour to the proposal site where they would have the dormers up here and the hip to gable and the extended ground floor would come forward to this point. This is the rear of the site, showing the relationship with the neighbour to the rear, which is 15 Brokenford Avenue, where there's a gap of 30 metres between. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we don't have any speakers, we have the objection letter to be read out by Mr. Kinghorn.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a letter from Mrs. Cusa Dick and Mr. Cusa, and they live at Summerfield, 26 Brokenford Lane, Totton. And they state as follows. We objected to application 20/11343, which was withdrawn, and made comments on application 21/10107. Our chief concerns were loss of daylight, the size, overbearing nature of the proposed extension, and the tile-hung finish of the dormer extension. We note that these issues have been addressed, but would like to make the following observations. Point 3, proposed development. Roof lights are referred to. We presume that these will be Velux-type windows and would be grateful if this could be confirmed. Point 6, Parish Town Council comments. We are pleased to note that there will be an obscurely glazed window to the ensuite bathroom. Point 10, planning assessment. We would like to state that we still feel that render rather than tiles on the dormers would be more appropriate. Additionally, please note that the address of the neighbour to the rear of 24 Brokenford Lane is 15 Brokenford Avenue, not Lane, stated in your comment. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Members, we'll move to the debate. Councillor David Hawkins.
Yes, what I wanted to ask the officer just a question on, is there any overlooking into the next door's garden from those proposed dormers?
Thank you, Councillor. Well, the proposed dormers face the rear of the site, so there would be some views at the bottom of the gardens to an angle, but there are already first floor windows which provide that relationship in this. It's obviously a built up area, and you do have views from your first floor windows to the sides of your gardens, to your neighbours. This will create a further higher window view, but as I say, it is permitted development to apply windows at this height within dormers, so it'd be hard to resist. I don't think there'd be a major overlooking issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
Thank you, Chairman. Mine is a question to officers. I wonder if officers could just show slide 106 again, which is a view from the back, showing the existing extension that comes out to the side. I'll just wait for her to get that one up. That's the one. The side extension, as far as I can understand, is not going to come out beyond the level of that side wall that's there at the moment. So what I'm saying is there's still going to be a gap between the boundary fence and the extended property. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, Councillor. Yeah, there'll still be a gap.
And also, I think in one of the other photographs, probably 105 and again in 104, there is already a 6-foot fence between the two properties, and the extension would be a couple of foot above that. So in your estimation, would that affect the window of number 26 that's alongside there?
I don't believe it would. No, there is quite a substantial gap. To say there's still a nearly a metre between the extension and the 6-foot fence. The extension would come forward, but it'd be the same height as what's there already.
Yeah.
And it, as I say, it doesn't come fully forward. So I think it being only single story and flat roof, I don't think it would have an adverse impact to that extent on the neighbour.
And lastly, just to be sure, going back to 106 again, we can see the rear window on the second story. So this will be a dormer on top of that, which sort of makes it look a bit 3-storey-ish, but that is within permitted development.
Yes, I've looked at this to quite some degree. I've worked out all the floor areas and the area they can extend with the roof alterations up to 50 cubic metres. So you can add dormers to the back of your property. You can do hip to gable without the need for planning permission. So it would be under permitted development.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Can't see any more hands coming up.
Sorry, Chairman, are we into discussion now? Debate?
Yes, we're going to debate.
Okay, shall I start off then?
Okay.
I think for me, now I've understood the side extension, which would appear not really to interfere with the neighbour, and that the dormer window, which is basically at 3 stories under permitted development, I don't think we have any alternative but to go with the officer's recommendation to grant this application. And if you pleases you, Chairman, I'm happy to propose that.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second that one.
Councillor Glass? Thank you. Is there any further debate needed? Okay, no more hands going up, so we'll come to the vote. So the vote is to grant subject to conditions, and that's been proposed by Councillor Benison and seconded by Councillor Glass. And again, I'll just remind you, if you've had any disconnections, to abstain from voting. So we are voting to grant this application. Councillor Anne Bellows.
4.
Councillor Sue Benison.
4.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
4.
Councillor Anne Corbridge. 4. Councillor, oh, they're not there. Councillor Barry Dunning.
4.
Councillor Alan Glass.
4.
Councillor David Hawkins.
4.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
4.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
4.
Councillor Tony Ring.
4.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
4.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
4.
And my vote is also 4, so that's unanimous. Can you confirm that for us, please, Democratic Services?
You've missed out Councillor Thierry.
Oh, sorry, I keep on missing somebody, don't I? Councillor Thierry.
Terribly, terribly hurt, but I'm going to vote in favour.
Thank you.
So that's unanimous.
Thank you very much. Members, that brings us to the end of the committee meeting. I don't have anything further to add. So thank you all for your time and your patience.